All right. Welcome in, everybody, to the Go 24/7 podcast. I am Glenn West. That is Sonny Ship to my left, I guess, or right, depending on where you're. I guess my left, y'all's right if y'all
Yeah,
are watching. So, uh,
too early for all that. Too early for all that. Discombobulation, G Dub.
already off to a firing start here on our week one preview of LSU Clemson. It's finally here. 7 to 8 months now of really just talking season here and writing about what to expect from this team. And a few days from now, we're going to finally get to see what this product is that LSU's been so boastful about, so prideful about. And we're going to try to break it all down for you guys here over the next 30 minutes or so. So, Sonny, how are we feeling about this thing now that it's finally almost here?
Yeah, I mean, look. I think I've said this, for a good bit now. When you're considering the tough task that this is of traveling to number four to open the season in their home stadium, rowdy environment. Who's the real Death Valley? Death Valley. I mean, there's so many storylines that could lead to the hype and to the anticipation of this game. But at the end of the day, you know, unlike years in past when LSU lost to Florida State both times, well, when LSU lost to USC, a red flag went up. And granted, you would have to see if LSU would lose to Clemson, but it's not going to be the end of the world. You know,
Yeah,
to me, that game comes 2 weeks later when Florida comes to town.
yeah.
You know, now in saying that, I I'm so far, I think Hunt Palmer and I are the only two I've seen make predictions for LSU. Right?
Yeah, I think so. We'll save
I
predictions
haven't
for
seen
the
yeah,
end.
I haven't seen anyone else, but so far, I think Hunt and I are the only ones who think that LSU is going to leave there with a win. So, and so I guess my point in saying that is in that it's not going to be the end of the world if LSU goes to Clemson and if they lose a very good, close, hard fought game.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not going to be a case like in years past to where we just had to deal with melt after melt after melt. The message board was just hard to even be around. I think everyone is going into this game with a better understanding of not only the opponent but also of kind of feeling like they have a better understanding of what LSU is. And I think what LSU is at this point is LSU is a veteran, experienced team who is built, like Brian Kelly said, to go on the road into a hostile environment like that and play football and not get caught up in all of the excitement and all of the hoopla. Now, whether or not that's enough to come out with a W will remain to be seen. But I do think that if you're an LSU fan, you know, I think you probably feel better about going into this opener than you did the previous three,
Yeah. No,
even
I
though you
agree.
know those games.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. And I think probably the reason I think most should feel excited about this group is because I think that they finally feel like they have the talent to be able to beat anybody on this schedule. Like, I mean, there's been some real belief within that program that they have put the right pieces together to make this thing really, really click this year. And look, that doesn't obviously guarantee that you go into Clemson and you get a big top five win or anything like that. But I think that there's just some added confidence with this group right now. And you've heard it from Brian Kelly this week. We heard it from players last night on Tuesday night when we had a chance to catch up with them before this game. I think that there's a growing sense here that LSU feels like they have the pieces that can go in and compete with this kind of team. And I think for me, honestly, it starts on the defensive side of the ball. Like I think that there's so many veterans that they've brought in, whether it's through the portal, whether it's through their internal development here over the last 7 months, that they feel like have really taken that next step and are going to be ready to kind of handle the atmosphere, handle the environment that Clemson's going to bring at them, and perform at a high level. Like this defense to me has been one of the most improved units that I've been around since, year to year covering LSU, like in terms of where they were last year to where they were this year. uh, there's a night and day difference with the athleticism, with the speed, with the size, what they're trying to do, what the goals of this group are. What Weeks was telling us last night, like their end game result or their end game goal for this season is to lead the country in havoc rate, which is tackles for loss, sacks, interceptions, negative plays, all those different things that go into getting opposing teams off the field. And let's face it, LSU's had a rough time of getting teams off the field, whether it's third down, whether it's allowing all the big explosive plays. They feel like this defense will travel, and that's something that Brian Kelly has pretty consistently said over the last several weeks and even months. Just how much you need good defensive performances to win on the road in hostile environments like they're going to face this weekend and like they're going to face throughout the entirety of 2025. I mean, at Alabama, at Oklahoma, at Ole Miss. I mean, these are all games where you're going to have your defense playing really aggressive, really with a havoc style that they want from Blake Baker. And I feel like they have the pieces to go there and do that. So just wanted to kind of maybe get your thoughts defensively on what you think LSU could maybe attack with Clemson, or just an advantage that they might have, just the experience as a whole. What do you think defensively about LSU can go in and maybe make this thing a little bit different than maybe it's been in recent years?
Well, I put this game, like a lot of people, I put this game on the quarterbacks for each side. Cade Klubnik from Clemson and Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Unlike probably most people, though, I think that the X factor for each team is going to be which quarterback is able to do the most with his feet.
Okay.
And with that said, I think LSU has to do, a good job of keeping Klubnik in check. And by in check, they can't let him reel off 6 and 7 yard runs on first down. You can't let him get in a 2nd and 3 to where you really, there's a plethora of plays that they could go to in the playbook. So they have to keep him in check. They can't, and he's probably. I could see him probably running 12 to 15 times in this game. By the time you toss in sacks, I wouldn't be surprised if his rushes column looked like that. But you can't let him finish with 75 to 80 yards. You can't let him just hit you for those short runs that put you in favorable down and distances. And so I think for LSU, for me, it's going to be what is Blake Baker? How is Blake Baker going to attack this? Who is he going to use as a spy on Cade Klubnik? Is he going to, he's going to have to go with the spy. He's going to have to back off and play coverage sometimes. And so, who is going to, who's going to win that chess match? I think that's going to be an interesting one to see. And look, the obvious if you probably asked 100 people and said, okay, if you're going to put a spy on Cade Klubnik for LSU, who's it going to be? Harold Perkins.
So I was going
That's
to
a
say,
name
yeah,
that comes out there, right? Yeah.
yeah,
So does Baker throw a curveball out there though, and instead of making him spy Klubnik, does he play him around and bounce him around a little bit to where you can bring him off the edge? Because it's hard to bring a spy off the edge,
yeah,
and get off of the quarterback. It's hard to, unless you're just blitzing that spy up the middle. You're really limited in what he's almost playing a prevent defense, kind of like, okay, I don't want to give up the big play. I'm not going to let you hurt me with the big play. I just have to kind of keep you in check, keep you in front of me. And so, does he use Perkins for that? Does he bring someone else up for that? You've got some big safeties, you got some big corners now. You got Mansour Delane, who's played some corner, played some safety. So I'm really anxious to see these packages that Blake Baker comes up with that he feels will catch Clemson off guard. Because I was really critical last year of the offense. I felt like Joe Sloan lined up in the offense and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're coming at you. We got the best offensive line in the country. You're not going to stop us. And lo and behold, we saw against USC, okay, like, well, wow, okay, so what's going on here? And so the point that I'm trying to make is that you can't be vanilla. I don't
yeah,
believe Blake Baker will be vanilla. I don't think Blake Baker is going to look at this and say, man, I've got an experienced defense. I got a lot of confidence on this defense. I got some dudes who can straight up ball. Let's go 11v11 and let's see who wins this. I don't think Blake Baker is stubborn enough to do that because he has so many pieces to work with. And he spent so long of trying to figure out, how do I integrate Harold Perkins Jr. into this defense?
Yeah.
What is his role? Where is his role? And so in all of that late night thinking and him staying up at night and trying to figure all that out, there's just a multitude of ideas that have crashed through his head. And so I'm really expecting him to come out and to kind of have his coming out party.
Yeah.
His coming out party of all the excitement of him coming back to LSU, taking over from Matt House, seeing the LSU defense have a resurgence. I really think that he's going to have some interesting things drawn up to where if Clemson is going to beat LSU, it's not going to be because they ran the ball and threw the ball. It's
Yeah.
because he made them one dimensional and they were just that good to win.
Yeah, the one dimensional piece is exactly where I kind of wanted to take off with this because I do think that, to your point about Harold Perkins, like there was nobody that made more plays through the first couple weeks of camp than Harold did at that star position. I mean, they were lining him up with tight ends and he was blowing up screen passes. He was getting into the backfield pretty consistently and applying pressure. And it really doesn't even have to be a sack, right? I mean, it just has to be getting in his face and making him throw the ball where he doesn't want it or throwing it to a place where he doesn't want to. Like there are lots of different ways to affect a quarterback, affect an offense. And I think for me, the one area here where I think LSU wants to come in and establish early is they want to take out the run. Like they want to eliminate the run game here because I think that they're just reading and listening to some of the Clemson reporters and some of the Clemson, kind of feel coming into the season. They're a little hesitant about this running offense for Clemson and how it's going to be able to effectively, complement their passing game. Um, and I think that there's some some credibility to that because Adam Randall is obviously a receiver turned running back. He's going to be the guy that I think they turn to here in Week 1 for the bulk of the carries. But he doesn't have very much experience playing the position. And so is that something that LSU can maybe try to exploit? Well, they send extra rushers, send extra blitzers off the edge because they have some more confidence in the back half of their defense. They're going to be able to hold up and make tackles and stay with receivers and things of that nature. Like I think for me, when evaluating LSU's defense, if they're able to take out the run game and make this Clemson offense one dimensional through the air, that's where they can have success getting off the field because then it opens up so much for you defensively in terms of what uh, coverages you want to run, what kind of pressure you can bring on third down. There's a lot of different things that I think LSU can really work with here if they're able to take out that running attack. And look, Klubnik's a really good arm. He's an awesome quarterback. He's going to be a potential first round pick at the end of this year. He can beat you through the air, but I think the one thing you can't let happen is him beating you through the air and beating him with you, beating and allowing Clemson to beat you with their legs too. I mean, we've seen that too many times here in recent years with LSU's defense, and it doesn't usually lead to good results. So I think that they have the pieces around them now, whether it's Bernard Gooden, Dominic McKinley, Ahmad Bro, Jack Pyburn, Patrick Payton, Gabriel Relaford. Like they have a good nucleus there up front to, I think, contain that running game, allow Whit Weeks and West Weeks and those guys in that second level to roam around the middle of the field and make some plays, make some things happen. And then if they're able to take out that run game, really have a good shot at sticking with receivers and getting the ball out and making sure that that Klubnik's getting the ball out quickly, so those corners and those safeties can kind of be latched onto those receivers for a consistent amount of the time. So I really like where LSU's at defensively. I think it's the strength of this team going in, and I think that there's a lot of ways that they can have some success here, which is why I think this is going to be a pretty low scoring game. Like I have this as kind of a really low scoring game, and just yeah. What are maybe some of your thoughts on just how
Well,
that could
I was going to say, let's flip the
yeah,
script. Let's flip the script. Okay, we talked about Clemson. We know that Clemson has to run the ball.
sure,
I think we both agree that LSU is not going to go to Clemson, leave with 50 net yards rushing, and have an overwhelming chance of winning.
Yeah.
That would be a
Yeah.
modest way to put it, right?
Yeah.
So, how is LSU going to move the ball on the ground?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Like I think for me, offensively, like the way that you saw LSU's offense work last year, it's just not sustainable. Like they threw the ball 45, 50 times sometimes in a game, and because they weren't able to get the run game off the ground, and they've been working towards that a lot. Like they've been putting a lot of emphasis when we've been out there for fall camp in the run game. And I'll be honest, it's been mixed results. Like there have been a couple big Caden Durham 45, 40-yard touchdown runs here and there. Um, but it's an element that's been a work in progress for me for from watching the kind of practice access we've had. um, it's been a work in progress, and now we haven't been out there as much the last week and a half, 2 weeks, as they kind of have really dialed in their Clemson prep. And but to your point, yes, LSU is going to have to establish some kind of run game because to your point about both Nussmeyer and Klubnik being a little bit more mobile with their feet, Nussmeyer is definitely on the shorter end of that stick. Like he's not going to be somebody that you expect to go out there and run for 75 or 80 yards. I don't think he has that in his game. He's going to, hopefully if the pocket collapses, if he has lanes, he can get out and get you 3 or 4 or 5 yards here and there. But he's not going to be somebody you ask to go run the ball 5, 10, 11 times as a quarterback. He's just not built that way. So they're going to have to complement him with Caden Durham, with Harlan Berry, with Caleb Jackson running through holes. And honestly, I think that brings us to our big question here, which is what can we expect out of this offensive line? Like this is going to be the big creme de la creme position group for me when watching this game is how is this newly built offensive line and the five starters that we think are going to be out there. And for those listening, I think probably Tyree Adams at left tackle, Paul Mubanga at left guard, Braylon Moore at center, Josh Thompson at right guard, Weston Davis at right tackle. I think that's the unit that you see LSU go out there with on Saturday night first. That doesn't mean they're not going to be some rotating in and out, but I'm curious, Sonny, what your thoughts are on how LSU can open up the run game and how big this offensive line is going to have to be in that effort.
Nussmeier's going to have to help his offensive line, and he's going to have to help his. He's going to have to help the rushing core, so to speak. I think he's got to run the ball 3 to 5 times. I think 3 to 5 times he's got to tuck the ball and he's got to run. Or, you figure out, he has to show some semblance to the Clemson defense that he will take off and that he will run. Um, I don't think LSU is going to line up and they're just going to hand the ball to Caden Durham and he's going to go zone right, zone left. I don't see that working in this game right here because of Clemson's defensive interior. I think the biggest thing that you're going to have to do to run the ball is that you're going to have to get Xavier Thomas involved. You're going to have to get Aaron Anderson involved. You're going to have to get Barry and Brown involved. You're going to have to do some swing passes to Caden Durham that are basically like an extended handoff.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do some things that are, you know, not unconventional, but that are just not considered your traditional run plays. You're
Yeah.
going to have to manufacture some yards in that department right there.
Get
But
them
I
out on the
really
perimeter.
think
Yeah.
get them out on the perimeter. But I really think that a key for this game right here, excuse me, is that we know Garrett Nussmeier can win games with his arm. But what held Garrett Nussmeier back last year was his unwillingness to use his feet.
Yeah.
And so you can't play a season and be scared. You have to be cautious of your quarterback, but you also can't not run certain facets of your offense to try to protect your quarterback in week one.
Yeah.
We're not in week nine making an SEC championship run here. You're in the
Yeah.
season opener. So, by no means do you want him exposed and taking shots like Daniels and Burrows took in their, throughout their careers. But he's got to give you something. He's got to give you something with his feet. He's got to show he's got to show that growth that we've heard about. He's got to show that growth for LSU to win this type of game right here. So I think that that's what's going to open up the offense is that you've got to be able to run the ball a little bit, and it's going to have to be in some unconventional ways. And look, you know, a 22-yard pass to Trey Green or a 12-yard run by Garrett Nussmeier. Man, you give me that 12-yard run by Garrett Nussmeier, because that 12-yard run by Garrett Nussmeier is going to open up five more of those
Yeah.
22-yard
Yeah.
potential plays to Trey Green. Whereas when he just takes that opportunity to Green, defenses are like, okay, well, we can sit back a little bit, or we can adjust to what we want to do. We can play our style of game because we feel that he's going to play just like he did last year. And so showing Joe Sloan's showing that he's learned some lessons from last year, I think is going to be crucial. And just not being stubborn, not being pigheaded. And I don't think there's any way that LSU, you could look at it and you could say, okay, I can see where LSU might think that they are, going to run over USC. There's a potential that they could go in there and run USC out of the building. You know, but you're not going into this one, having that kind of thinking. But I think you have the confidence. I think you're confident enough to know that if you play your game, that you can everything that you shot for, starting out 1-0, being 1-0, winning that first game is all within your grasp. And I go back to that word, and I'm glad that Brian Kelly mentioned it a lot on Monday. I do think maybe you mentioned it a little too much, though, the word confidence,
Yeah.
because he's talking about his players having confidence. Well, you go up there and you lay an egg like you did in the last three games. Well, guess what? Everybody's going to be saying you were the one who was too confident. You
Yeah.
know, and so channeling all of that and putting all of that, like I guess just rounding all of that into your loaf of bread that you're trying to make, that's going to be the test for Kelly. And look, I don't think there's anyone who feels that that he doesn't have a lot to prove going into this game right here.
Yeah.
I
No, I
mean,
get it. Yeah.
you're not paying $10 million. You're not paying somebody $10 million or $9 million a year, whatever it is, to start off 0-1 every year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like I think kind of coming into this thing and looking at this game from just how important it is for this era of LSU football. Yeah, I went on, some radio different hits this week, and if LSU wins, like this is a championship caliber team to me. Like I think they established themselves as one of the early betting favorites to get to that final spot, because this is such a huge moment in their tenure under Brian Kelly, and not only getting that monkey off their back with their openers, but going on the road and winning a top 5 game. Like that would be such a huge deal for people for this program and for those players in that program, and just what they've been hearing, what they've been trying to preach to themselves throughout the last 7 months. Like that, if that comes to fruition and they win that game, I think the sky's the limit for this team from there. And so, to your point, like I think that there's a lot of known parts to this, right? There's a lot of known things that LSU is going to try to do in this game that I think leads them to have some confidence into this going into this season. And so I'm very excited to see what this group looks like. I think from an offensive perspective, I really like what you mentioned there about Nussmeier using his legs a little bit, especially if he can do it early in the game. Like if he can establish, like, hey, I can run on you guys a little bit early in the game. That opens up so much for this
Third
offense.
and three, he picks up five.
Yeah, yeah, even
Yeah.
something small like that where it's he
Yeah.
picks up 5, 6, 7 yards or something like that to me will open up so much, because I think just having a respectable running game or a complementary run game is something that I thought kind of going into this game was going to be a huge key, because they have so many guys that they can get the ball to in the passing game. Like, I mean, I can rattle off 7, 8 names that I think could catch passes in this opener against Clemson, and have contributing roles throughout the game. So I really like the pieces in place, and to me, it really just does come back to can they find some more complementary offense this year and starting here in week one? Because I did a little bit of a dive into the previous openers. Um, LSU has not been great on third down in these previous three openers. They've been 11 for 30 on third down. I think they've had 8 or 9 red zone trips that haven't ended in touchdowns, but have ended in field goals or not getting it over or not resulting in any points. Like red zone offense and third downs have just not been something they've been able to capitalize on in these openers. And that's really going to be massively important to going on the road and showing that you can score against a team in Clemson that has a pretty stout defensive front seven, and it comes in with a lot of hype and a lot of expectations as well. So, yeah, like I think that that's going to be huge.
G Dub, I saved you an aisle seat on the Hunt and Sonny train.
Yeah, I
If you
know,
want
I
to jump
know,
on that train, man,
I
you
know,
still got time. You still
I,
got time.
I know. I
As
just,
the man who handles the preview predictions and pick them every
yeah,
week, you actually have until Friday morning to make things official.
I
You
know,
know,
yeah,
you
and
got time.
I'm, I'm pretty sure I'm going to
I'm
stick to my
still
guns
riding that
here, but
24-20 train, man. I'm still riding that 24-20 train.
yeah,
You know,
we'll get into that in a second here. I do just kind of have one more kind of question and kind of thought that maybe we can bounce off of each other here, but just the thing I was mentioning earlier, like the 1-0 thing, the off-season messaging that they've sent to these players and to this team. Um, what do you think if LSU leaves with the win? What do you think that does for them in terms of springboarding them through the rest of their season? Like if what they've been preaching and just focusing their sole energy on this one game and on the guys that are directly in front of them, what do you think that that can maybe that kind of mindset can lead into the rest of the season? Because it sounds to me a lot like the 2019 guys we're talking. Like, I mean, those guys, every time you tried to get like season long kind of goals out of them or season long kind of expectations, like they fired right back at us, and it was just we're just focused on Northwestern State. We're just focused on Texas. Like there's really nothing. There was really no looking ahead long term with that group, and I get that same energy from these guys.
I do too. Very, very experienced, very mature group. And that's why I'm with you 100% on what you said. You go in, you win this game. I think it's a terrific, it's a huge springboard into what can come. But I also caution people to, if they don't win this game, it can still be the same team that it can be if it wins that game.
Yeah,
I mean, this is such a tough task. It's you know LSU fans. That I think it's easy to have that feeling of, hey, we play in Tiger Stadium. We're the real Death Valley. You know, um, they know how hard it is for others to come in, but it almost seems like Clemson Stadium is not getting that same level of respect going into this game. I think that that's kind of not being talked about enough of just how tough it is to go into a place, like Clemson. You know,
yeah,
I've never been to a game. I've never been to a game there. I know I've seen enough of them to know about the tradition of touching the rock when they run down, and just all of the tradition, the passion, the history that goes with that. And that place is going to be absolutely berserk
yeah,
come about 6 o'clock, well, 7 o'clock that time, their time on Saturday night.
yeah,
30 minutes before kickoff. I mean, it's going to be at an absolute fever pitch. So I I'm not. I guess what I'm trying to say is that unlike some other past years, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world if LSU doesn't win this game.
yeah,
Uh, I think that everything that they can reach by winning this game, they can still reach by losing this game. And I go back to that confidence word that Brian Kelly tossed out, because he's got such a confident group. He's got such an experienced group. I think that they will be able to bounce back. Now, obviously, your margin for error shrinks a lot. Yeah, it's not an SEC game, but it's still a big game. That at the end of the year, the clowns sitting around the selection committee room are going to be, they're going to be looking at that game. They're going to be, if LSU's on the fence, going to say, well, they did go to, they had a chance at Clemson, but they lost that game. So you don't want to put that in. You don't want to put that in, in anyone's hands. But the 2019 comparison, I think, is good when you're looking at this team and you're kind of talking about a lot of the veteran leadership. Um, I guess the one difference is that the 2019 team, we didn't realize that a lot of those leaders were going to emerge as juniors.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and, and,
and I think
it was a nice healthy dose of you had the older guys, you had the Burrow, you had the Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but then you had you had some other guys who
Bingley,
who were
Jamar
juniors.
Chase,
Exactly,
Terrace
exactly.
Marshall.
You
Yeah,
had a nice little, you had a nice mix in there, but I don't think anyone would say that the voice, whenever Joe Burrow spoke, everyone shut up and listened, you
yeah,
know. And you hope that Garrett Nussmeier, and all indications are that Garrett Nussmeier has that same respect. And I don't think we'd be seeing him wear number 18 if
yeah,
he didn't.
yeah,
Look, I go back to when Joe Sloan first got here. Walker Howard was here. You had all of that quarterback room, and kind of the knock on Garrett then was that Garrett could kind of be a clown. Garrett kind of liked to mess around a little bit. And not like just like an immature college student. Like any redshirt freshman. 19, 20-year old college student. Now you don't hear any of that. All you hear is the leader, the walking the walk, the talking the talk, and so there's a lot of there are a lot of resemblances to that 2019 team. I guess I was always kind of hesitant to anytime you mention 2019. It's
yeah,
kind of like when you I can remember when Percy Harvin was the new big thing in college football, and every slot receiver thought they were going to be the next Percy Harvin, then they
yeah,
were going to be the next Honey Badger,
yeah. I
and
was
so
just kind of
you
taking,
really
yeah, I was
yeah,
just kind of
but
taking
I'm
it
with
from,
you. I'm with you. I think that's a good point. That is a good point there.
yeah, just from an energy and just a mindset standpoint. I think there's a lot of the same qualities, and I will say, like that 2019 team had so much of its returning core coming back, and this one is in a lot of ways very different in terms of all the new pieces that they're going to be integrating into this thing, which is why, I think you could see LSU stumble out of the gates here early, but long term, I think that's been kind of my biggest thing here is that short term, yes, you might have a bump in the road. And look, winning on the road at a top five team, that's really hard if you have everybody returning from your previous year's team, or have a really good roster going in, or whatever the case may be. But long term, I don't have as many long term concerns with this group. Like I think that they're going to be a really, really good team. It's just going to be about if they hit some adversity here early in the season, how do they bounce back from that? And I think they have a lot of the right kind of mindsets and a lot of the right people to be able to bounce back quickly and make a really good season out of this year. So with that, I guess we can get into our predictions. I'll go first and pass it off to you. Um, you're trying to talk me into it, man. I don't know that I can get
I
on
can
that
tell you're
train.
waffling, man. I can tell you're waffling, dude. I can
I
tell. I can
know
tell.
I'm
You're
waffling a little
denying it.
bit
You're
here.
denying, but
I'm
everybody can look at you right now and tell you're debating, dude.
I'm gonna
It's
stick
all
to
good.
my
It's all good.
guns.
It's all good. You
I'm gonna
still
stick to
got
my
48 hours.
guns. I'm
You
gonna
still
stick to
got.
my guns. I think this is going to be a really close game. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think Clemson's going to get it done though in the end. I think that they win uh, by a score of somewhere around 2017, 23-20. I think it's going to be one of those really tightly contested defensive battles. The 57.5 over under, I don't think that they come close to that in terms of just points total between the two teams. Like I really am expecting a pretty heated defensive effort here from both of these groups. And look, you go on the road and you lose by 3 to a top 5 team. I think you're still very much like, okay, we lost this first one, but we still think we can compete with these guys. We can compete with the best of the best, and I think that they can still walk away with a lot of opportunities and a lot of things that they can maybe do in that game that they can use as learning lessons to fuel them for the rest of the season. I just think that this. I'm just so hesitant about this offensive line right now. I just haven't seen enough consistency from that group to really lead me to believe that LSU's offense is going to consistently be able to get, inside the 20 and then capitalize when they get there. So it really could come down to a field goal here instead of a touchdown, or a missed fourth down conversion here instead of a field goal kind of thing. Like I think it's going to be a really tightly contested defensive battle. I think LSU's defense really kind of puts itself as the leader of this team, as the kind of the backbone of this team. I think they have a lot of guys on that side of the ball who can really be that kind of the kind of leaders for this group that they really need going into the rest of the season. But I do think Clemson gets it done here at home, somewhere in that 23-20, 2017 range.
Yeah, I mean, LSU. I think they get off to a fast start. I think Clemson, I think the second quarter, the home crowd and everything kind of really just kind of starts to settle in a little bit. Everybody starts to compose. And I think it's going to be, I think LSU is going to score, come back, and I think they go in at halftime, and Brian Kelly is able to talk to these guys, the experience, all right, let's everybody get our composure. Let's go back out there. Let's settle down. Let's just play football. They do. And I think they outscore Clemson. Well, let's see if it's 17-10 at the half. I give Clemson the field goal to go up 20-10, and then LSU wins 24-20.
All right,
That's kind of,
there we go.
yeah.
I mean,
I think
look,
the fourth
if
quarter. I
that,
think the second half. I think that all of that experience, the
yeah,
longer the game goes, all of that experience starts to kind of take over a little bit, and guys start playing more within themselves. They start trusting themselves a little bit more, because if there's going to be some, there's going to be some distrust early on, from Baker's defense, when you got all these new pieces in here. This play's not going to work. The guy's going to try to do something on his own,
yeah,
and then everybody's just going to have to just regroup and just get on the same page. But yeah, man, I tell you what. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. If you make the flip on Thursday, I will save you your aisle seat. If you
okay,
wait till Friday morning, we're going to put you by the window.
okay, that's
I know
fine.
610 doesn't like being by the window.
I hate the window. I hate the windows. If it's an
I know
exit,
you do. That's
if
why I
it's an
said
exit
that.
seat, I can deal with the window. But look, I nothing would make me happier than for that prediction to go wrong and for LSU to walk out of there with the win. I think it'd be. I just have so much PTSD having been in the building from the previous 3 years and seeing just.
And see, I'm the opposite. I'm like, it's got to end, right?
Yeah,
This has
it's
got to
coming.
be the year.
It'll happen. It'll happen eventually.
It's telling
This
me
is going to
there's a
be
chance.
This is going to be as tough though as a first game that they've had since I can't even remember how
Oregon,
long.
probably.
It could be
Probably
this.
Oregon.
Yeah,
Even
Oregon
tougher
was.
than
Yeah,
Oregon.
I mean like
Even
they're.
tougher than that. 'Cause they played
Yeah,
them at a neutral spot.
yeah. This is going to be a toughie, and there are pathways to LSU winning this game, and there are pathways to them winning this game comfortably. I think that they have the talent if they are playing at their A+ best to really win this thing by double digits. But I just have not been able to, after watching these previous three, to really kind of get myself there, and really watching this offset this fall camp. The access that we've had has been great for fall camp and giving us kind of a sense of what this team's going to look like going into the year. But I can't get myself there yet. So we'll see it all on Saturday. We'll see it all play out on Saturday. Very excited to get out there. We'll be at Clemson. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage for you guys from Clemson. Lots of recruiting stuff on the way, as well as LSU kind of leads into their own home schedule and having lots of recruits on campus over the next several months. So we've also got some great deals on the way. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, we'll see you guys at Clemson. But he's Sonny Ship. I'm Glenn West, and thanks for listening and watching the Go 24/7 podcast.